if we could get a motion to accept the meeting minutes from last month's meeting.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from last month's meeting.
A second?
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, whoever.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed of anything that was written? Nope. Okay. I see we have some guests with us tonight. If you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what application that you are involved in? Michael, I see you're on here.
So my name is Michael Borowski. I have been a member of the Town of Cortlandville Solar Committee, and so I am here to answer any questions there might be with regard to the three town laws regarding solar proposed by the Town of Cortlandville. John couldn't make it tonight. They also had a town board meeting at which Teddy Testa, after 34 years, handed in his retirement papers for.
And John, for everybody's reference, is John Del Vecchio, the attorney that submitted this on behalf of Cortlandville.
Okay, thank you. Eddie Velasquez?
Put in chat. He's from the Cortland Voice.
I see. Okay, any others? Okay. I don't really have any remarks right now, so we can turn it over to the director for remarks.
So we talked briefly about the upcoming trainings that I'll just remind everybody to share with their local municipalities, and any of their planning or ZBA members will be next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and registration is right on the county planning website. And the deadline to register is Sunday. Obviously, the sooner the better, but we'll accept everything until Sunday. We will be providing some food, and we're trying a new layout. So we're hoping for some feedback afterwards. So hopefully next month, any of you who attend, or if you know anybody who will be attending, hopefully you can let us know what you think. And we'll be working on those, we'll be presenting those topics in conjunction with the state, the Department of State, Chris Eastman, who's really wonderful. So, while we're on it, Emma, we can talk about the in-person meetings. I can just kind of, if anybody has an issue, it looks like the state of emergency will be ending, and they will no longer be accepting virtual meetings. Are there any if any members have an issue with that, just feel free to reach out. Yeah. It's, is there anybody else? And yeah, we can, so we're staying tuned, and unfortunately the information as far as what they're going to allow and when will be required has kind of been coming really last minute. So today, today or tomorrow, I'll get back in touch with the clerk of the legislature that's been keeping her finger on the pulse of this and seeing if there's any news. Are there any individuals, just a show of hands, who are pretty adamant about wanting to go back to in person?
I prefer in person.
Yeah. I see pros and cons to both.
Yeah, I don't have my camera on, Tricia, but I would definitely prefer to go back in person.
Yeah. Well, we may not have a choice, so we'll I will send out a message, or I'll contact everybody and let you know. We obviously know the date of our next meeting, but hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have a little more direction as to what avenue we're going to be going. And I'll reach out to everybody and give you a definitive answer on that. But I think that's it. We've got a big agenda, so we can start getting through it.
I agree. Alex, you want to take it over from here?
I can do that. Start sharing my screen. All right, start getting through these. So the first one, well, did we want to start with the solar one since we have someone here to?
Yeah, let's
waste your
start with
time.
Cortlandville's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta go back.
All right, start here. So this one is a zoning text amendment review for the purpose of regulating the safe, effective, and efficient use of installed solar energy systems in order to encourage renewable energy and a sustainable lifestyle by protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the community while minimizing the adverse impacts on the adjusted surrounding neighboring properties. It's being referred here because it impacts property throughout the town of Cortlandville. So sections 1, 2, 3, and 5 outline the title, statutory authority, intent, and applicability of the law. Section 4 is definitions, and within the definitions, they break apart solar energy systems into 3 different tiers. So we've got tier 1 energy systems, which are building integrated and building mounted solar energy systems. And then the next tier 2 and tier 3, and 3 is further broken out into A and B, are all ground mounted. So tier 2 are small scale ground mounted solar energy systems, which essentially just means it's 200 or 2,500 square feet or less of solar panels. Tier 3s, anything above 2,500 square feet, and then up to, tier 3 is broken into A and B, tier 3A and tier 3B. Tier 3A are energy systems above 2,500 square feet up to 10 acres. And anything above 10 acres is 3B instead of 3A. So tier 1 solar energy systems would be allowed as an accessory use in any district when it is attached to a lawfully permitted building or structure. They'll be exempt from conditional permit requirements unless it reaches or increases the height of the structure by 6 feet or more. Tier 2 solar energy systems would be allowed as principal and accessory uses in any district again. A conditional permit would only be required if the solar energy system was located in an area of potential environmental sensitivity on a slope of greater than 15% or in the front yard of a residential lot if any above ground portion of the system is within 100 feet of a public highway right-of-way. Tier 3 solar energy systems, 3A specifically, will be allowed as principal and accessory uses in agriculture and industrial districts only, with a conditional permit and subject to the requirements laid out in section 6, 3, and 7. 3 of 6, and then section 7. Tier 3B would be allowed in agriculture and industrial districts again by conditional permit and site plan review. So tier 3A is just conditional permit, 3B is conditional permit and site plan review, subject to the same requirements as tier 3A. Tier 3 systems will also be exempt from conditional permit requirements if it's producing energy primarily for active farming or agricultural uses. Section 7 outlines the requirements for solar energy systems that require conditional permit. Any one of the above that requires conditional, that's the section that lists the requirements for it. It's broken into 3 different categories. First one is a rather comprehensive visual impact assessment requirement. After the impact assessment, they'll need to follow it up with a visual impacts minimization and mitigation plan to ensure it'll have as little visual impact to the community as practicable. I put in a note here about the lighting design. Says it site shall be specified to avoid off-site lighting effects to the greatest extent practicable. I just put a note that since lighting can be effectively measured, it may be pertinent for the town to set the amount of lumens at some point, so you minimize some ambiguity there. May not be, it's up to them. Let's see, and then you have access and parking and engineering and maintenance requirements as well. Section 8 grants further powers to the town planning board to impose conditions on conditional permit. Section 9, height, setback, and sitting restrictions outlines, you guessed it, the height, setback, and sitting regulations for solar, for any of the 3 tiers of solar energy systems. So there's that. Any notes in here? Myself. Nothing I wanted to specifically highlight. So section 9, non-conformance, and we did in our CRC meeting, we did speak about some of the formatting stuff, and that the applicant has said that they'll handle that. So that's going to be handled. So section 9, non-conformance, outlines the procedure for non-conforming solar energy systems. Section 10 restricts signage and requires that disconnected and emergency information is displayed on site. Section 11 gives the town the authority to inspect those solar energy systems. Section 12 requires that applicants for Tier 3 solar energy systems submit and agree to the performance of a decommissioning plan and all the requirements for that. Sections 13 and 16 outline permit and seeker requirements. 14 and 15 refer to other local laws, the next 2 local laws we're about to do. And section 17 and 18 establishes the amendment's effective date and ensures the integrity of the amendment for the future. The CRC did meet, as I said before. Kathy McGrath from Cortland County Soil and Water Conservation District had 2 comments. One that section 9(3)(f) should refer to vegetation native to New York rather than simply native vegetation. If you say native vegetation, they could say, well, it's native to the US. So they could put something from Georgia, and that may not be native to New York State. So she had that comment. And then also that many solar energy system projects do not accurately reflect areas of disturbance when calculating whether or not a SWIP would be required per the town's stormwater ordinance. This is due to a common misrepresentation of what constitutes land disturbance when installing panels for solar energy systems, and that the town should keep this in mind when reviewing Tier 3 permits. The town attended the CRC, took the comments into consideration, and finally, this is a type 1 action under seeker. So after all that, I've only got 2 contingencies, and I should note I did change the wording on there to say only if the following contingencies are satisfied, because I know we talked about that last time. So
Nice.
1, that the town consider changing section 9(3)(f) to refer to vegetation native to New York rather than simply native vegetation, and 2, compliance with seeker.
And can I get a motion to accept staff's recommendations? Please.
This is Wendy. I'll make a motion. Or second.
Thank you, Wendy.
Which one of you wants the first and which one wants the second? Whatever. Just put...
I didn't hear that. the
Uh,
second person?
Windy first and then Slowy second.
Oh, okay, good. Any discussion?
Alex or Michael, I have a question. In section 12, where it discusses the decommissioning performance, does it make sense to have verbiage that the town could require a performance bond associated with it, since we're in its infancy and God only knows what's going to transpire 15 years from now, you know?
There is a performance bond required. There's a plan that has to be put into place before permit can be issued, and there's the performance bond or a financial security has to be established to cover the cost of decommissioning prior to the construction of an
Okay,
improvement.
okay, it is there. I'm sorry, I missed the bond part. Okay, it's good that it's there, I think. Otherwise, 15 years from now, there's going to be a lot of
I
abandoned
had
solar
a
sites.
concern that my only concern on the decommissioning was that there was nothing that described below ground removal, and in other ordinances I've seen, it did discuss removing below ground structures. I mean, I don't know if there's any need for that in this case or not, but like to a depth of 4 feet below ground, any wiring or any substructures of any sort.
I'll have to take a look at that. I thought we clearly had that covered. If we don't, we will. There are already statewide regulations that it's depending on the project. If there's an agricultural activity going on, there are certain standards that require removal to a certain depth. And if it's not expected to return to agricultural activity, if there was agricultural activity, it might be simply restored to a slightly higher, lower standard.
Okay. Anybody else?
I had
Yeah.
a comment, a
Go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm reading it right or not, and it could be totally off. I thought I saw something about a 50-foot setback for the Tier 3A in addition to like a 100-foot setback. So I wasn't sure if there's some confusion. I'm just reading it wrong. There are two different sections. One was like section, I don't know, section 6.3 CV had 50 feet, and then section 9 had the 100 feet. So I wasn't sure whether there's confusion or whether I'm just reading it wrong.
I saw that too, Chuck.
Answer that, or
6.3, what was the reference, Chuck?
if I looked at it right, it was under section 6.3 or Tier 3A, and then it's letter C. I was trying to follow all those. Really hard to find my place and the page numbers.
Yeah.
There's something about a 50-foot setback. I wasn't sure why that was in there if we got 100 feet.
I saw something
Make a
that said
note of that.
200 feet. Number 4, section 11. Can you hear me? Section 11 under the zoning code.
4T or
They talked about
I don't know if she's 4T. I've been buying her,
200 feet.
but a lot of them are still like brand new.
There are, with regard to the 200-foot setback, the ordinance included a larger setback from a non-participating residence. So ordinarily, the setbacks would say be 100 feet from a property line, but if the adjoining property had a residence on it, and the resident was not a participating part of the project, then the requirement would be a minimum of 200 feet from the resident itself. And that would be, many of the ordinances allow that setback to be measured to the solar field itself, the Cortlandville ordinance requires the setback to be measured to fencing that would be in place.
Okay.
I also had a concern about the tier 2 front yard. It says in the description, or in the front yard of a residential lot, talking about the 100-foot setback. So I mean, even if it's 100 feet back, you can still have solar panels in a front yard in a residential area.
Yeah, I had concerns about that too.
And now also, there's no conditional permit is required if it's just under
If we could
20.
stay with that for a second. So yeah, that is a 100-foot setback. But remember, the tier 2 projects at 2,500 square feet are limited to an area that would be a maximum of 50 feet by 50 feet in size in order to get to 2,500 square feet. So
Right.
it's a pretty small area that you're talking about with regard to those tier 2 projects. And that's why they were put into a category all by themselves.
And then, Michael, why is there no conditional permit required for something, say it's 49 by 49 square feet, instead of 2,500 square feet, just under 50 by 50? It wouldn't require any conditional permit at all?
If it's 50 by, if it's less than 2,500 square feet, and it doesn't trigger any other triggers like freshwater wetlands or slopes exceeding 15%, then no, it wouldn't require a conditional permit.
Pretty lenient.
Yeah, so all of this will have to be approved by the town board, so the public will have input in it, correct?
That's correct. There will be a public hearing
Okay.
by the town board.
And then if we move down to tier 3A, no plan is required for a tier 3A.
Hey, Dan, some people are having a hard time hearing with all the background. Could you mute if you're not talking?
Yeah, I don't know who's got the background noise there.
Could be Mr. Hayes. I saw some activity in the background there.
It's children.
Yeah.
It's got the
I heard
children.
one just went in the other room, yeah.
Yeah. Just for anybody who's, when you're not talking, if you could just keep your mute button on, that would be great. I get it. Happens to me all the time.
Mhm.
So yeah, and in terms of talking about the tier 3 projects, some of the I think we had, well, if I back up, I think we had a pretty good mix on the committee. We had a member of the Planning Board of Appeals. We had a member of the Planning Board. We had the town attorney. We had myself. And for those of you not familiar with my background, I was with DEC for over 30 years, and the last 20 of those as the permit administrator in a number of different locations. And so I guess what I'm saying is I think we had another individual who was an engineer, had a pretty good mix of coming at this. And I think the tier 3 projects in particular, we picked a break point in terms of those larger than 2,500 square feet. They're still subject to seeker, but the break point also at 10 acres gets us to a type 1 action. So a lot of other things start to kick in. And I guess I would suggest that if you're looking at other regulations, I would say you're not going to find. I think when the town itself put the moratorium in effect is because it was concerned with regard to the number of projects and the impact that those projects might have on the character of the community. And I really believe that we put into this ordinance probably the most progressive visual assessment process that you're going to find in central New York to get at that very issue. And I think we also introduced a number of other concepts that were not into it that I would draw your attention to, which are major forest conversions and the protection of wildlife corridors that would have to be identified and addressed. So I don't know. I guess I'm segueing backward a little bit, but I guess I'm pretty happy or proud of the work the committee did as a whole. I mean, we met at least a dozen times. We looked at probably 20 other town ordinances. We talked to departments of the New York State Department of Ag and Markets, of NYSERDA, of the Department of Environmental Conservation, in terms of trying to address what we thought were the core concerns. And I would say that aside from some of the things that are being raised as administrative issues, and I can raise one for you myself that has come up and I only learned today is a real issue. I think it addresses most things. The one issue that I would relay to you that could be an issue is the extent that public notices requirements. I spoke to Bruce Weber today, and there was a project that was larger than 30 acres in size in terms of a solar project, for which an adjoining property owner who had a substantial property boundary with this project was never notified that there was a project being considered. And when I talked to Bruce about it, he informed me that the triggers for project notification were either variance or public hearing. And if neither of those two triggers were or became implementable, then a project of that magnitude might not be noticed to residents of a particular area. So I would, I'm pointing that out myself because I think that's a fair criticism that individuals, that could be owned property adjacent to a substantially large project like this would really probably deserve some sort of notification. Whether or not it changes the project or anything else, should have the ability to address the town planning board while they're deliberating whether or not to issue a conditional permit and what the conditions would be on that conditional permit.
That's a good point. So is that something that might be rewritten into this ordinance law? Is it a law text amendment?
You guys are taking it into consideration, right, Mike? That's not
Yeah.
something that we need to include.
Probably will be, how do I want to say it, proactive in terms of trying to raise that as something, but I'm just, again, the review committee has this. This is, I believe, considered an amendment because we have an existing solar law. We don't have a battery or a pilot law. That's why I think those are, one's considered an amendment, the other two are simply addressed as laws because they're both brand new.
Okay.
And just for everyone's reference as well, during the coordinated review committee, we did speak about the formatting of the local law, since all three were submitted in a format that kind of lent itself more to a standalone local law. We talked with John Delvecchio and Mike about just the formatting to incorporate it better into the existing zoning text, which they were completely bored with, right, Mike? That was
my understanding is from my conversations with John and what John has said is that the town of Cortlandville has a contractual relationship with a company that will take the law post us being happy with it and format it to make sure it meets every legal requirement there is.
And that holds true for all three of them. So any formatting issues or any indentation type things will all be alleviated, just for everyone's reference in any of the three laws. One thing that we didn't include in our report, and Mike, I apologize, I'm just this afternoon got back from NISAC up in Albany. But one of the really hot conversations, solar was a huge topic, a very popular topic. There were a lot of sessions. One of the things that kept coming up was the concern about the current infrastructure having the capacity to be able to host all this additional load in the system. And is that anything that you think you would want to formally include? Any verbiage about ensuring I think that a developer would want to, for their sake, make sure that the location, all of the infrastructure, the lines, the transmission is there for, the capacity is a potential. But to my surprise, I talked to other planning directors or other people from different locations, and that's not always the case.
So it surprises me that it would come as a concern, because it's been my experience. And in terms of full disclosure, my wife and I have signed a lease with EDF Renewables to be part of that larger project, which is located in the towns of, which would be, I should say, located in the towns of Cortlandville, Homer, and Solon. So because of that, I guess I've been following solar quite a bit. And some of the conversations that I've had, because again, my wife and I do own some land. We, aside from being part of the EDF project, we've been approached by multiple, and that's considered a commercial solar because it's a 90 megawatt project. The types of projects that you're referring to, Trish, I believe are considered community solar and are extremely dependent on whether or not there is an interconnection, three-phase power available, and what the cost of getting to it is. But again, my experience has been, also, I'll segue and also say, while in fact, I was a legislator and representing the town of Cortlandville and the village of McGraw, the village of McGraw had certain lands that they would have loved to have made available to a solar developer, because it would have provided them a nice stream of revenue. And when we reached out to solar developers, they immediately came back and said the cost of interconnection was too high. I'll also say that similarly, there was a 2 megawatt project a couple years back proposed up at the county landfill, and originally when the project sponsor for that project came forward, they were looking at close portions of the landfill, and initially they thought they could do something in the 8 to 10 megawatt range, because they thought there was approximately 40 acres available to them of close landfill. When they went to take a look at it and did their analysis more closely, they realized that from an economical standpoint, the maximum project they could propose would be a 2 megawatt project, because of just what you're referring to, the interconnection cost. And so I guess getting to the bottom line is, I think all of the competent solar developers that are out there have maps that they've gotten from National Grid or NYSEG, which show them where the existence of three-phase power is, and that becomes an important element in the consideration. Now, it's not impossible for some of these companies to overcome that, but that's where the issue of what they negotiate for a pilot comes into play, because certainly you take two projects of the same megawatt size, one that has a 50,000 interconnection cost and one that has a 500,000 interconnection cost. And and both of those companies are not going to be capable of underwriting the project and making the same profit at the same level.
We did
Are you ready
have,
to call the question yet or not?
anybody else have any questions or concerns? Then all in favor of accepting staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And it shall pass. Am I on still?
You are.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm worried
There
I'm
you go.
losing connection. Okay.
I muted myself on my dongle here and forgot.
Thank you, Mike, for your information.
Say again.
I said thank you, Mike, for your information.
Well, he's also with the next two as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
So next one
Mhm.
is a local law review for the purpose of advancing and protecting the public health, safety, welfare, and quality of life of the town of Cortlandville by creating regulations for the installation and use of battery energy storage systems. It's being referred to the county because it impacts property throughout the town of Cortlandville. So sections 1, 2, 3, and 5 outline the proposed local law's title, statutory authority, intent, and applicability. Section 4, definitions, breaks out battery energy storage systems into two tiers. You have tier 1, which are those systems having an aggregate energy capacity of less than or equal to 600 kilowatt hours. And if in a room or enclosed area, consist of only a single energy storage system technology. Tier 2 battery energy storage systems, on the other hand, are those having a greater capacity than 600 kilowatt hours, or are comprised of more than one storage battery technology in a room or enclosed area. Section 6 outlines the general requirements for all battery energy storage systems. Section 7 permits Tier 1 systems in all zoning districts, subject to special use permit and exempt from site plan review. Section 8 permits Tier 2 battery energy storage systems within agriculture and industrial districts only by special use permit and site plan review. It also lists additional requirements for Tier 2 systems, including utility lines, signage, lighting, vegetation, noise, also a decommissioning plan. Section 9 requires that battery energy storage systems be certified by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. Section 10 outlines permitting timeframes and abandonment provisions. Section 11 establishes enforcement penalties, and sections 12 and 13 establish the local law's effective date and ensures the integrity of the law for the future. We met coordinated review committee reviewed this proposal, and Kathy McGrath again had one comment this time from Soil and Water. She commented that section 8H11 should refer to both New York State DEC standards and the town of Cortlandville's laws instead of only DEC's standards. And the town was there, and they took those comments into consideration as well. Finally, the local law is considered a type 1 action under seeker. So my recommendations are: one, that the town consider changing Section 8H11 to refer to the town of Cortlandville's laws and regulations along with the DEC's standards and compliance with secret.
Motion to accept staff's recommendations.
I make a motion, Amy,
Amy, second. Can I get a
Wendy.
second?
This is Wendy. I'll second.
Thank you, Wendy. And discussion. I had, again, the site plan review requirements and the setbacks here. In Tier 2, battery energy storage systems require site plan review, but Tier 2 solar energy systems do not. And same way with setbacks, 50-foot setback for solar projects and 100 to 200 foot for battery storage. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So
Why?
The
Yeah.
battery storage is a pretty technical ordinance, and essentially one of the two engineers that were on the committee, Carlos Ram, took the lead, and what happened is NYSERDA had a model law, and for pretty much this, what the town of Cortlandville is adopting is pretty much what the NYSERDA model battery law is, with modifications to tailor it to be appropriate for the town of Cortlandville. And that's probably why we missed the reference to the town of Cortlandville's need for a water quality cert and the water quality regulations, and picked up on the DEC ones, and why we missed that. So that was a good pick by the committee to recommend that one or identify that.
But don't you think a site plan review would be, could be required for solar systems versus when they are required for battery energy storage?
So which one are you saying you don't believe it requires a site plan review?
I believe it said Tier 2. Battery
Are tiny
energy.
projects. They're 50 by 50, so they would occupy a maximum of 2,500 square feet, and they would be primarily or solely for the use of the building. I guess what the committee really thought as we were drafting that regulation was that for the most part, those projects would likely be small businesses or farmers that were trying to generate electricity for their own needs. We didn't see the need there. Whereas I think using battery storage raises a host of other issues in terms of fires and the types of chemicals that might be part of those batteries that will retain storage. And that's why you're seeing a more robust need for a conditional permit review.
Okay. I understand that. Anybody else?
Amy, I think you're muted.
I'm muted too. That's why
am I
couldn't
on
vote.
now? I'm on now.
Yes, you
I
are.
think those things that Mike referred to are required under the building code anyway. So, yeah. I mean, the battery storage facilities, they're a requirement under the building code. So the only issue would be the location, whatever. And they're not real large facilities.
All right. Anybody else? Well, all those in favor of accepting staff's recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. I'm trying my hand here.
It worked.
I did. Now, okay, you gotta hit it again to get it off.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? No abstentions. Okay, so carried. Okay, moving on.
All right, 3 of 3. Sure, I'm not muted. Okay, cool. 3 of 3 on the Cortlandville solar laws. This is a local law review for the purpose of ensuring that the benefits of the community's solar energy resource are available to the entire community by promoting the installation of solar energy generating equipment through a payment in lieu of taxes pilot, granting reduced costs to system developers and energy consumers, and providing a revenue stream to the entire community. It's being referred to county planning because it impacts property throughout the town of Cortlandville. So sections 1, 2, 3, and 4 outline the proposed or the local law's title, statutory authority, intent, and definitions. Section 5 requires that owners of property on which solar energy systems are located enter into a pilot agreement with the town of Cortlandville. Unless that solar energy system is residential or the owner does not seek or qualify for an exemption from real property taxes. The leasee or licensee of any owner of a property entitled to a pilot agreement may enter into that agreement on behalf of the property owner. Section 6 outlines the requirements of pilot agreements required under this law. Also provides that the town establish the payment amount for pilot agreements by resolution, which has already been done. Resolution 288 of the year 2020, the town of Cortlandville establishes a minimum annual payment of $7,000 per megawatt, together with an annual cost of living adjustment. And I've attached that to the packet. Sections 7 and 8 establishes the local law's effective date and ensures the integrity of the local law. Finally, it is a type 1 action under seeker. Only recommendation is that it complies with seeker.
Motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Move it. So moved.
Second. A second, please.
This is Wendy. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
I just have a general question. Why? Pilot agreements. So this is one just for the town. I thought they were given through. Is there something all solar systems get that or something? So why do we need a law governing this? I guess I'm a little confused of what this is all about and why it's necessary. Because I would assume that there's pilot agreements for. So maybe someone can explain that to me.
So what I would say is, and I'm not sure where the requirement comes from, but the real beauty of this law is that with regard to 487 tax law, which is the law that provides for the exemption, there is a process by which a project sponsor can notify a community and say, we intend to be developing a project, and there's a clock associated with once a municipality receives that letter. And the clock is a 60-day clock. If the town, the county, whatever the municipality is, fails to respond in writing to that notice from a project sponsor, that sponsor is off the hook in terms of real property taxes per se, and/or a requirement to enter into a pilot agreement. So aside from what you're talking about with regard to the specifics of what the pilot is, the beauty of this statute by the town is it proactively addresses that letter that might be received by a project sponsor and puts them on notice that yes, there is a pilot going to be required. From my personal standpoint, I think the issue of whether or not the mechanics of what pilot is actually in place right now is maybe, is maybe questionable in terms of whether or not it's really appropriate because if it changes over time, this law would have to be changed in order to address those changes in what the pilot requirement is. But the real beauty is that it proactively, and I've already said it, addresses that letter that might be received. And you might not be aware of this, but in the early days of some of the community solar projects coming, some of the communities failed to respond within the 60-day clock, and those project sponsors were off the hook for taxes forever. Complete.
So, Mike, if I understand correctly, that there's a state law regulation regarding solar that they automatically get a pilot unless when they send this notice out, is that it? Rather than paying whatever the property the project assessed at, is that it?
There's real property tax law 487, and 487 is in place unless the community opts out. For example, Town of Homer recently opted out of 487, which means that their projects within the community, within the Town of Homer, would be assessed at full value. Now, but the and therefore you don't enter into a pilot. There's a procedure and a formula for calculating the fair market value of a project. But if communities are looking to realize that that there's a certain value to promoting solar projects because of the fact that we're trying to address climate change by having reducing our fossil fuel needs, then there's probably a need to provide some sort of tax relief. And 487 does that. But also within 487 is this requirement, as I've indicated, that the project sponsor gets to send a letter, putting you on notice, and if the community fails to respond within 60 days, they're gone. This proactively addresses that so that if somebody was sick, somebody missed the letter, misplaced it, whatever, the town of Cortlandville would in fact be covered and would be able to negotiate that pilot.
Okay, thanks, Mike. It kind of explains what you're talking about. I didn't quite understand it. The only other thing that I had was it's 7,000 per megawatt or something like that, but it's a COLA. I'm not sure if you define how you define the COLA anywhere in the ordinance, whether it's based on the Social Security ones or what they use. So I guess it increases year to year just as COLA. So I wasn't sure if you have a formula or a standard method of doing that that you might want to have in there.
Okay, all right. Point taken.
Mike, the $7,000, I mean, where does that stand comparatively speaking? Is there a ceiling imposed by the state? Where did you come up with the 7,000?
Well, I don't know that I may get myself in trouble because this is where I'm getting into personal point of view versus versus the position of the town of Cortlandville board members. But let me address it this way. So the town can either be participating in 487 and provide some basis for exemption from 0 to basically nothing. If the community were to opt out, like town of Homer is, then there is a formula that both I believe it's NYSERDA and the state New York State Real Property Tax Office got together and combined with in order to come up with a fair appraisal method. Because you can imagine, from the day you construct a solar project, it's depreciated every single day. You're on the hook for decommissioning at the end of 30 years, and so that project is not worth what it is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and it might actually have a less than 0 value 28 years from now when decommissioning is coming up. So essentially, if you opt out of 487 you're taxing a project at full value. But there's a formula that's been established in effect. And again, I'll use what knowledge I know about the EDF project. That project would be roughly $120 million project to construct. But based on the formula that exists, it would be appraised for fair value assessment at around $30 to $35 million from day one. And every year after year one, that project would be reassessed by the real tax appraiser of each town. And so the beauty of, in my opinion, the beauty of entering into a pilot is most project sponsors would be willing to enter into that, and for the town or the host community, it provides them a fixed amount that typically has some sort of escalator clause, like 2 or 2.5% over the 15 years that they can issue it for. If the project goes on beyond that, then it is subject to the formula for full value assessment. With a full value, every single year you're looking at a declining balance of revenues being generated from that project because the fair market value of that project is declining on an annual basis.
Okay, so the town can make bank on a certain amount, plus the investors and provider knows exactly what their rate of return is going to be.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so, Mike, that automatically goes up a certain percentage if they're in this pilot program?
I can't remember what the ordinance said, and I guess I'll be candid to this point, which is I have been trying to convince members of my town board that I say to them 4 things. 1, no 2 projects are the same. 2, interconnection costs for any 2 projects are not the same. 3, there's differences in terms of the profitability between commercial and community solar projects, and 4, the value of solar incentives being offered by the state and the federal government change from time to time. And so if you have, again, this is my sole opinion, that if you have a situation where no 2 projects are the same, and I believe that, and you could, in effect, by trying to impose a fixed number, make one project economically unfeasible. I think Cortland County has a IDA that has a professional board that has the talent and the ability to negotiate a pilot based on the economics of individual projects. And so my personal position is that town boards should not be getting involved in setting pilot amounts. They should be allowing the IDA to do their job and negotiate those on behalf of each township.
And this $7,000 goes to the community?
In this particular case, what happens is that the way this is set up for the town of Cortlandville is it's a total of 7,000. The way it's broken up is that the desire is to have a host agreement, which for each megawatt, the town would get the first $1,500 off the top. Okay, so and then after that, whatever the remainder amount is, in this particular case at 7,000, it'd be $5,500. You look to the percentages that the school districts get, and the town get, and the county get, and that the remainder of that money is divided up exactly according to that formula. So the school district share, the county shares, and the town shares. But if you're familiar with how taxes are, in this particular case, if you look at the tax structure, the town of Cortlandville, out of every dollar of the tax dollars that are coming in, get roughly 8% of the total. So I can't tell you exactly what the school districts get, but then the county gets the lion's share.
Thank you.
I
will
think the
say one other
percentages
thing,
are,
just in terms of understanding it also, that there are many things that are always included in that pilot agreement, but by statute, fire taxes or taxes for the fire district are not collected.
Okay.
Taxes for the fire districts have to be a separate amount, and they are collected at full value assessment.
okay. How about unless anybody else has a question, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Moving on.
If I can, I think you're all set with me. I'm going to say goodbye, unless somebody has another question for me.
No, thank you for your input, Mike.
Thank you.
No problem. Any follow-up questions, you know where to find me. So thank you all very much.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And
Okay, what's
okay.
next?
Gutchess?
Gutchess?
Gutchess, yes. Okay.
Number one.
So this one, they applied for every permit under the sun, it seems like, in terms of zoning. Site plan review, conditional permit, aquifer protection special permit, and floodplain development permit review for the purpose of adding a 2,500 square foot pre-engineered metal building to the northwest side of an existing sorter building. Property is 890 McLean Road. And I'm sorry in advance if I say McLean. Not from the area, I'm sorry. I've done it multiple times just talking to myself. It's zoned I2, General Industrial, within the Aquifer Protection District. It is in the Wellhead Protection Zone, and it is within an area of special flood hazard. Being referred to us because it's within 500 feet of Route 281, Route 13, and McLean Road. It is getting a site plan review and conditional permit just to expand the use on that property. Aquifer protection special permit because the development exceeds $150,000 in development cost, and it's getting a floodplain development permit because it is within an area of flood hazard, an area of special flood hazard. So it's a lot for a little, but so sections 178-72, -75, -76, -77 outlines the requirements for conditional permits and site plan review. This development meets all those requirements because it does not alter the site conditions. It's compatible with the community's character. It's just more of the same that's there, and does not involve any prohibited activities. Section 178-45 lists the requirements, restrictions and requirements for uses and activities in the Aquifer Protection District. This doesn't involve any of those prohibited regulated uses. This development meets all the requirements of the Wellhead Protection District because it doesn't involve any of the prohibited uses, and it does not increase the parcel's impervious surface. Section 178-81C outlines the information required for approval of a floodplain development permit. I haven't seen these documents. I can almost guarantee that the town has them, but just because that recommended that the applicant does get that to the town if they haven't already done so. And it sounds like they already have, but just put it in there. And this is an unlisted action under seeker. So recommend approval with two recommended conditions: that the applicant provide the documentation outlined in section 178-81C of the Code of the Town of Cortlandville to the town, if they have not already done so, in compliance with seeker.
Motion to accept staff's recommendations.
I'll make the motion, Chuck.
I second Amy.
Thank you. And discussion.
You said
Questions?
like an awful lot for a little 2,500 square foot building.
Yeah.
A lot for a little.
And you know, just again, to emphasize that it's on an existing paved area. There's no new area that's not going to be, they're not tearing up any grass, which was a huge part in going through the zoning, you know, as far as the green space requirements and those added items.
Yeah, it just seems like a minor addition to their overall huge facility, and I don't have any problem with it.
And they still had a lot of green space left considering the last application we looked at, wasn't it? I was surprised how much green space was, percentage of green space was left. Okay, any other questions, concerns? All those in favor of accepting staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Oh, go away. Okay, anybody opposed? No. Okay. No abstentions. Let's move forward.
All right, this one may seem familiar. This is a conditional permit review for the purpose of replacing a 210,000 gallon tank with a 340,000 gallon tank in the same location on an existing concrete pad with leak detection and secondary containment, and replacing existing tanks as a normal site maintenance / update, which will improve technology, leak detection, and tank foundation / spacing. This is property is described as 1902 Lorings Crossing. It is the Suit-Kote facility in Lorings Crossing. It is zoned B2. It's within the Aquifer Protection District, and just those two things. It's being referred to county planning because it is within 500 feet of Lorings Crossing, which is a county route. So this is phases 2 and 3 of the review we did in January. We approved phase 1. This is for 2 and 3, and they haven't changed anything about phases 2 and 3. They just provided the right documentation to do that. So this will be the 11th application on this site, going back to the beginning of this department. If you want me to read the whole history again, I will, but yeah, I didn't think so. So section 178-81 requires that all development within the special flood hazard zone get a floodplain development permit. Same as last time, as it's, you know, there are portions to the floodplain, there are portions that aren't. Just ask that the town make a determination whether they need it or not. DEC was contacted during phase 1. So it's the same kind of recommended conditions, that any consideration of this proposal is contingent on DEC approval, and that that the applicant provide the town with provisions for removal of the tanks once they're no longer in use. And it is an unlisted action under seeker. So the recommended conditions: that the town make a determination as to this project's compliance with 178-81, that the applicant obtain approval from DEC, including possible modifications to existing permits and stormwater speedies, that any positive consideration of this proposal by the town be contingent on DEC approval, that the applicant provide the town with provisions for removal of the tanks once they're no longer in use, and compliance with seeker.
And a motion to accept those recommendations.
I'll accept them.
Good.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And anybody have anything to say?
It's more
Concerns?
questions. I don't know. Alex, just a question. So they're increasing the gallons there, but it's not beyond what they were approved for in 2007. Is that what this is saying here? Or I didn't quite follow what was going on, but they're making a couple bigger tanks, but back in 2007, they're still under the limit that they were talking about approval back and then. Is that what we're looking at here? Do I understand that right or not?
Yes, that is what, yes.
My only concern is that I think they must get updated approvals for any modifications that were issued from phase one. I think, with laws changing, environmental issues, different upgrades to things all the time, and phase one was many years ago, right? A few years anyway. That they
Phase one
need
was
to-
January, was January. We just looked at it 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, but when they applied for it, hasn't it been in existence for a while when they first obtained those permits, or from the DEC and
The DEC permits they've had for a good long while, yes. I believe in phase one, 2 months ago, we were talking to him and he said that DEC was aware of the updates and that they were working with them.
Yeah, I think they were, when we had the coordinator review committee meeting in January, they were basically working side by side with DEC for these upgrades. So I think that it was just a formality that it was under that, but basically they're not allowed to touch any of this stuff without having a whole host of parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think your recommendations say DEC approvals. I think every tank they put in's got to have a DEC permit number assigned to it and all that kind of stuff. So DEC has to approve every single tank like that's petroleum storage because of the size of them. So they'll be going through something with containment and all that kind of stuff, I would imagine.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Alex, thank you for the clarification that this was phase 2 and phase 3 from the deja vu all over again that we did in January.
Mm-hmm. I just wondered if they had any emergency plan in effect for any emergencies that might happen, since we just recently did have a fire in the Oakville area. And it seemed like there was quite a bit of need for additional help to control that. Do we make facilities like this have in place an emergency plan?
I would assume so. I'm not equipped to fully answer it, but I would assume so. And I believe I watched the town board, or the town board when they approved the Aquifer Protection Special Permit. I believe that's the meeting I'm thinking about. But it was there. They asked a very similar question, and he said they were working on revamping it in any sense.
In fact, and I spoke to the Cortlandville Fire Department, Kevin Whitney, today, just about that, actually, and he's kind of reevaluating, looking at a lot of facilities, and just kind of ensuring that there is the the services that they would require in order to respond to emergencies. So it's definitely the conversation that's taking part right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think it did require services that we didn't really have, or weren't equipped for here in the county.
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody's good with that, did we call a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Staff's
Aye.
recommendations.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody have an abstention? Okay. Another one, check it off.
Going through them.
Yeah.
All right. We are out of Cortlandville now. So this one's in the town of Homer. It's a zoning text amendment review for the purpose of allowing event centers, including wedding barns and similar operations, in agriculture districts by conditional use permit issued by the town planning board. So the amendment
What
defines.
page are you on?
Oh.
I'm sorry, what page is that on?
74.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, it's the
Give a
last
second for everyone to catch up.
There we
It's
go.
rolling. I put the packet together so I know it. Like, I just know it.
Yeah.
So the amendment defines event centers as a building structure or location with a purpose of hosting public gatherings or events such as weddings. Event centers will only be allowed in agriculture districts, as I said, and it will require conditional use permit by the town planning board. There'll be a new section under their supplemental regulations, which will it'll say that where an event center is allowed by conditional use permit in the ag district, the minimum lot size shall be 20 acres. The minimum setback of an event center building from the property line shall be 650 feet. The hours of operation shall be limited from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then finally, this is a type 1 action under seeker because it would change the allowable uses in a zoning district affecting more than 25 acres. Recommendation is only compliance with seeker.
All those in favor with the recommendation?
Aye.
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 Wait, don't we have to have like a motion to accept and then have discussion?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Getting ahead of
Motion to
ourselves.
accept staff recommendations. Yeah.
I'll
Good
make the
time.
motion to accept staff recommendations.
And a second, please.
I'll second it.
Okay, now to any discussion.
The only thing I question, I'm assuming they still have to follow building code for
Oh, yeah.
age and use for these facilities for assembly spaces out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
For sprinklers and all that kind of good stuff. So as long as this is just a zoning thing, so the building code's still in effect. All right.
Right.
Is an event center, I mean, isn't there, fire department has an event down on Main Street. Somebody could get married in the park and have a large group of people. The Performing Arts Center, isn't that an event center?
Where are you talking? Down where?
In Homer.
They have
Yeah.
to do fire inspections. They have to meet code regulations, and they have fire inspections regularly.
They're supposed to, but I mean, when
Right,
you're
but this,
modifying a building from a barn into an assembly space, that's going to require sprinklers.
Yeah, probably. But again, that would come under the building code application. Yeah.
This is just simply the zoning. It's up to whoever lets them do it to take care of building code.
Yep.
yeah, I'm just confused that an event center per se is only allowed in ag districts and only 20 acres and 650 feet. I mean, I consider all those other areas event centers also.
Yeah, but I think, Ann, what they're talking about, what the big deal now is people are trying to have weddings in barns. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so people want to do it,
Right.
and you're not allowed to have assembly spaces, commercial events, probably on agricultural lands. So this will let them do that. If somebody's got an old barn, they want to do it. I would imagine most of the town of Homer doesn't allow those kind of things out in agricultural areas in the middle of nowhere. So this
Right.
probably lets them do it.
And when you mentioned Center for the Arts, I think, but that's in the Village of Homer, and so that that's
Yeah,
But
so
anyway,
Yeah, we are
all
in
of
but I
this
think
is, all
it
of
really,
this is just allowing them in addition
Yeah.
to those other places, Ann.
right, right. And it's
Okay,
pretty
that's
restrictive
what I
as
was,
far as, it's pretty restrictive as far as separations and
there,
all the land, yeah.
Yeah, it sure
Yeah.
is. 10 o'clock at night too, man.
No,
5 acres?
I know, it's pretty restrictive, so there must be something, an area that somebody wants to do it, but
No,
I
not
don't
my
see-
business, but I'm not hiring them.
I don't see a problem.
Okay. All those in favor of staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Anybody object? Okay. Moving on.
Moving right along. For some reason, that page got sized really large. All right, Village of Marathon. This is a local law, the last of the local laws tonight. Review for the purpose of prohibiting actions and conduct that tend to depreciate not only the property on which it is located, but also the property of other persons in the neighborhood and the community generally. It's being referred to us because it impacts property throughout the Village of Marathon. So let's see. Sections 1 and 2 are the title and the what is it? I think just the authority that it has. Let's see. Section 3, the local law. It's the. I'm trying to remember. I've got so many things in my head. I apologize. I got to remember this one. Yeah, so sections 1 and 2 are the title and authorization. 3 is the purpose that just said. 4 is listing out the definitions. I'm on the roll again. Section 5 makes it unlawful for any person to store, deposit, place, maintain, or cause to permit to be stored, deposited, placed, or maintained outdoors any junk, clutter, litter, and debris upon private property within the Village of Marathon. Any junk manufactured home. I did speak with John DeVecchio, who is the village attorney there. Comma will be removed. It's junk manufactured home, which is defined within this. C, more than one motor vehicle without the current inspection tag. And D, any bus, uninhabitable mobile home, truck trailer, horse trailer, semi-trailer, tank truck, or similar vehicles, or units for storage of junk. The storage or placement of certain materials, such as but not limited to construction material, lawn ornaments, furniture, are exempt. Sections 7 and 8 outlines how the local law will be enforced and its penalties. Section 9 outlines how the enforcement officer can remove abandoned vehicles. Final 3 sections, 11, 12, and 13, ensure the law's validity in case of contradiction, repeals prior regulations, and establishes its effective date. It is considered a type 1 action as it would change the allowable uses in zoning district affecting more than 25 acres. My only recommendation for condition is compliance with seeker.
I'll move it.
Thank you. I had my mute off. Second on that recommendation?
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Or I'm sorry, discussion?
I have, okay, so if I'm correct, I think Marathon does not have a zoning ordinance. Is that correct?
I think they do, but let me
I
check.
didn't think so
I brought it.
because they've come to us before for a local law that could be resolved during a zoning ordinance. Now, maybe they have it now, but I don't think they do. So here's a local law. Who's going to
Yes,
enforce
they do.
it? Oh, they do. Okay.
They have
So why
zoning.
don't they include this in their zoning ordinance? I'm just asking. How is it enforced?
I believe it gives that to the
Code
code
enforcement.
enforcement officer.
Enforcement officer, it looks
Yeah.
like.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. These are things that probably could be taken care of in a zoning ordinance. I don't, yeah, because they've come before for local laws, so I don't know. But that's okay. If that's what they want to do.
Any other concerns?
Mm-mm.
My only concern is I think some of the definitions are a little loose and not very well defined. They're going to have some issues trying to enforce it, like something
Yeah.
that has no value. No value to whom?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you do? That really seems like very loose definitions in here, and they're going to have somebody wants to put junk in their backyard and say it's got value to them. I don't know. So that's going to have a hard, but they probably have one property that's been a pain, and so that's why they're passing
Yeah.
ordinance.
I think, yeah, I think this might be a little targeted, but
Yeah.
I'm
You know,
whatever.
Alex and I had quite a bit of conversation about just the verbiage, you know, and we said, well, there's probably better ways to say it. But you know, then we'd get in a lot of it seemed kind of subjective to us, like, you know, so, but we kind of got to the point where, you know, again, pretty much the same conclusion. And how much do we really
Put into.
It's up to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They probably want something in place because they got a couple properties that are a problem, the mobile home or the other ones in there, and they just want to. They'll worry about the rest of it when they find out they can't or can't enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could be handled better, but. Okay, all those in favor of staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Last one of the night. List of the full GML reviews. In the village of Homer. This is a use variance review for the purpose of building a freestanding LED entrance sign. Property is described as 85 Southwest Street, it's 281. In the village of Homer, it's zoned B3, Research and Development. It's being referred to the county planning because its property is located within 500 feet of Cortlandville Town Line, 281, and the I-81 ramp entrance / exit. So this one's a little, but I'll try to explain it. So essentially, the sign portion of their zoning code was implemented before the creation of the B3 Research and Development zoning district. So the sign code, with this in mind, maybe not knowing what a new zone could be, states that if a new zone is created after the enactment of this article, signs permitted in such zones are those permitted in R1 zones. As you can imagine, a monument LED sign is not allowed in an R1 zoning district. So that's why they're applying for use variance. So in order for the use variance to be granted, applicant must show that applicable zoning, regulations, and restrictions have caused unnecessary hardship, as is the case for any use variance. And due to this parcel's current use being one allowed in the B2 general business district, which is something that is within the the article that deals with signs, it's recommended that this sign conform to those requirements, which is section 228-21D. It's further recommended that the village consider reviewing and updating Article 3 signs of the Village of Homer zoning ordinance. Due to the LED signs' proximity to 281, the applicant will be required to follow Department of Transportation's criteria for regulating off-premises commercial electronic variable message signs. That's that same regulations that applied to that one we reviewed for CRT. It's therefore recommended that the sign follow those regulations. And then this is an unlisted action under seeker. So the recommended conditions are that the applicant show the village that applicable zoning regulations and restrictions have caused an unnecessary hardship, that the sign conform to the requirements outlined in section 228-21D of the Code of the Village of Homer, which I believe it does. That the village consider reviewing and updating Article 3 signs of the Village of Homer zoning ordinance, for that the sign follow the regulations outlined in the criteria for regulating off-premises commercial electronic variable message signs in New York State document found on New York State Department of Transportation's website, and compliance with seeker. I think you're muted, Ann.
Motion to accept staff's recommendations.
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Not really. I guess I wonder why that's their administrative building for the family health. It's not like the hospital didn't have services and stuff. It's just a static facility. I wonder why they want a LED sign out front. Whatever. So, it's a business district now, so they should be allowed to do it. So
Yeah, I don't agree with use variances, but you're right. It's a business district, and according to what I guess the regulation changed. So yeah.
I did speak with Kevin McMahon, who's the code enforcement officer for the village. They're working on updating this.
Yeah.
They're working on a full overhaul, it sounds like, of their zoning code. It hasn't been updated in a while.
Yeah.
And this will be part of that. So.
Yeah.
Alex, does it tell anywhere in this how often the message will change?
In here, I don't believe it says, but within that, I don't remember if I ever included that. Yes, within the DOT's things, minimum duration of the message can only be 8 seconds. So that'll be part of our recommendations, that it follows these standards.
Minimum duration. I was a little concerned with it being so close to the exit off 81 there and the school area with just distraction, and that DOT regulation there was quite concerning the way it was written, you know, that talks about the distractions that these signs cause. Anybody else have any hesitancy about this?
We were actually really surprised that they didn't come back with more comments when we sent this proposal to them.
Yeah, we sent this to DOT for any comments, and they didn't really have any comments besides
They didn't.
those regulations that we put on it.
Yeah, I did notice it was 15 feet tall too, but if it's allowable, then I didn't realize it was allowable. I tried to look up the code for the village and I couldn't follow it. It was too many signage partitions in there, so.
Their sign code is a bit esoteric even for me, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, all those in favor of staff's recommendations?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. We shall see a sign there.
It's gonna say you love us.
Yeah, I know. I wondered if that's what the message would be.
I don't know.
You will love us.
So only had 2 returns this time, which is surprising considering the amount of full reviews we did, at least to me. But we had one in the town of Homer, which was an area variance for a garage 3 feet from the property line. This garage already exists, so it sounds like the ownership changed, and the new owners didn't know it wasn't allowed. So now they're trying to get kosher.
They're
Site
building
one
on the same
is,
footprint? Are they building on the same footprint?
I believe it's the same building that's already existing.
So
And
maybe
if they
they
are
need to
building it, this is the same footprint that I see on the aerial photos. So,
Okay.
second one is in the town of Virgil. It's a minor subdivision. Not much to say on it. It meets all of the standards. They just need to submit the required final plat material to the town.
Okay. Good meeting, everyone, for sticking it through. Next meeting is going to be April 20th.
Yep.
Tricia, you said you'd let us know if we
Yep.
are in person or,
Yep, I will let everyone know by the end of this week.
okay. Somebody want to make an adjournment or anybody else have any announcements? How about?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.
You guys,
Good night.
You.
you did a lot of work, Trish and Alex. Thank you for all this.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex does the brunt of it. I can only take credit for the reviews and
Okay.
been pretty wrapped up in a lot of other things
Yeah.
going on right now. So
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a good job, guys. Long
Trish
and-
does plenty too. I deal with this. She deals with everything else with the department. So.
All right. See you next month, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Good night, everyone.